The blood on Rebecca Morgan's wedding dress had long since dried to a rust-brown stain, but she could still see it as clearly as the day her fiancé had been shot down in the street 3 years ago, and she knew with absolute certainty that she would never trust another man as long as she drew breath. She stood behind the counter of her general store in Panamint, California, in the spring of 1882, watching the miners and drifters come and go with their dust-covered boots and their empty promises. The town had boomed when silver was discovered in the Panamint Range just a few years before, and now it crawled with men seeking fortune. Rebecca had learned to read them all, the liars and the thieves, the gamblers and the drunks. She sold them what they needed and took their money, but she never let a single one of them pass the careful walls she had built around her heart. The bell above the door chimed, and Rebecca looked up from the ledger she had been studying. A cowboy walked in, tall and lean, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of summer sky. He removed his hat respectfully, revealing dark hair that needed a trim, and nodded to her. "Afternoon, madam," he said, his voice low and measured. "I'm looking for supplies. Heard this was the best store in town." Rebecca kept her expression neutral. She had heard every line, every attempt at flattery. "It is the only well-stocked store in town," she said. "What do you need?" The cowboy smiled slightly at her correction, but did not seem offended. "Practical woman, I appreciate that." He moved through the store with purpose, selecting items carefully: flour, coffee, beans, ammunition, a new rope. He did not browse aimlessly or waste her time. When he brought everything to the counter, he counted out exact payment in silver coins. "You are new to Panamint," Rebecca observed, more statement than question. "Yes, madam, Isaac Owens. I have been hired on at the Chapman Ranch, about 10 miles north. Foreman said I should get supplies here rather than the mining camp stores." "Smart foreman," Rebecca said, wrapping his purchases in brown paper. "Those camp stores charge twice what things are worth." Isaac studied her face for a moment, and Rebecca felt uncomfortably seen. Most men looked at her figure or her auburn hair. This one seemed to be looking at something deeper, something she did not want examined. "Might I know your name?" he asked. "Miss Morgan. I own this establishment." "A businesswoman," Isaac said. "That is impressive out here." Rebecca handed him his parcels. "It is necessary. Good day, Mr. Owens." She expected him to leave, but he hesitated. "Miss Morgan, I do not mean to be forward, but would you consider having dinner with me? There is a restaurant down the street that smells mighty good." The refusal came automatically, honed by 3 years of practice. "No, thank you. I do not socialize with customers." "I understand," Isaac said easily. "Thank you for your help, Miss Morgan." He left without argument, without the wounded pride or anger she had come to expect from rejected men. Rebecca watched him walk down the dusty street, his parcels balanced easily under one arm, and felt something she had not experienced in a long time: curiosity. She crushed it immediately and returned to her ledger. But Isaac Owens came back. Not the next day, which would have been too eager, but 3 days later, needing more ammunition and some leather working tools. He was polite and professional, asked after her day, paid his bill, and left. A week after that, he needed fabric for a torn shirt and asked her recommendation on the best material for hard work. Rebecca found herself explaining the differences between cotton weights and durability, and Isaac listened attentively, asking intelligent questions. "You know your business well," he said when she had finished. "I have run this store for 4 years, Rebecca replied, 3 of them on my own. She had not meant to reveal that, but Isaac only nodded. "That takes considerable strength and knowledge. My mother ran a dry goods store back in Missouri after my father died. I saw how hard she worked, how much she had to learn and manage." Rebecca felt her carefully maintained walls crack slightly. "It is not easy," she admitted, "especially in a mining town where men assume a woman can be cheated or frightened." "I imagine you disabuse them of that notion quickly enough," Isaac said, and there was respect in his voice that warmed something cold inside her chest. Before she could respond, the door burst open and 3 miners stumbled in, already drunk despite the early hour. Rebecca stiffened immediately, recognizing the one in front as Dutch Reynolds, a troublemaker who had tried to run up a tab she refused to extend. "Well, well," Dutch slurred. "Pretty Miss Morgan, you reconsidering my offer for credit? I will pay you back, plus interest of a personal nature." "Get out," Rebecca said firmly. "I do not serve drunk customers, and I told you last week you are not welcome here." Dutch took a step closer, his friends laughing behind him. Now, that is not very friendly. Maybe you just need someone to teach you some manners. Isaac moved so smoothly Rebecca almost missed it. One moment he was standing by the counter. The next he was between her and Dutch, his hand resting casually on the revolver at his hip. "The lady asked you to leave," Isaac said quietly. "I suggest you do so." Dutch's alcohol-fogged eyes tried to focus on this new obstacle. "This is not your business, cowboy. Miss Morgan's store, Miss Morgan's rules. That makes it the business of anyone with manners." Isaac's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "You are going to walk out that door now, and you are not going to come back unless you are sober and apologetic." For a tense moment, Rebecca thought Dutch might be foolish enough to go for his gun, but even through his drunken haze, he apparently recognized something dangerous in Isaac's stillness. He spat on the floor Rebecca would make him clean, that if he ever wanted to shop here again, and stumbled out with his friends. Isaac waited until they were well down the street before turning back to her. "Are you all right, Miss Morgan?" Rebecca's hands were shaking slightly, and she clasped them together to hide it. "I can handle men like Dutch Reynolds." "I am certain you can," Isaac said, "but you should not have to." Something about his matter-of-fact tone, the way he had defended her without making it about his own ego or expecting gratitude, made Rebecca's throat tight. "Thank you," she managed. Isaac picked up his parcels. "If he gives you trouble again, the Chapman Ranch is not far. Someone can always come fetch me." "I can take care of myself," Rebecca said, but it came out less sharp than she intended. "Yes, madam, I believe you can. Good day, Miss Morgan." After he left, Rebecca sat down on the stool behind her counter and pressed her hands to her face. She did not want to feel grateful. She did not want to feel anything toward Isaac Owens or any other man. But the memory of him standing between her and danger, asking nothing in return, lingered long after the store closed that evening. The next time Isaac came in, a week later, Rebecca was reorganizing the higher shelves, standing on a ladder that had seen better days. She heard the bell and looked down to see him entering with his hat already in his hands. "Miss Morgan," he greeted, then frowned. "That ladder looks unsteady." "It is fine," Rebecca said, reaching for a box of candles. "I have used it 100 times." The ladder chose that moment to prove her wrong. The leg collapsed, and Rebecca felt herself falling backward, the floor rushing up to meet her. She braced for impact, but instead found herself caught in strong arms, Isaac having crossed the store in 3 quick strides. "Got you," he said, steadying her on her feet. His hands lingered on her arms just long enough to ensure she had her balance, then released her immediately. Rebecca's heart pounded, and she could not tell if it was from the near fall or from the unexpected safety of his embrace. "Thank you," she said breathlessly. "That ladder is a danger," Isaac observed, examining the broken leg. "You need a new one before you break your neck." "I will add it to the list of things to purchase when I have the funds," Rebecca said, smoothing her skirts and trying to regain her composure. Isaac looked at her thoughtfully. "I am handy with woodwork. I could build you a ladder, sturdy and safe. Would not take me more than a day." Rebecca's automatic refusal rose to her lips, but she stopped it. The ladder was dangerous, and she did need to access those high shelves. "I would pay you for the materials and labor," she said carefully. "Materials only," Isaac countered. "I would be glad to do it." "That would not be fair to you." "Miss Morgan, not everything has to be a transaction." His blue eyes were steady on hers. "Sometimes people just help because it is the right thing to do." Rebecca felt herself softening despite her best efforts. "Why?" she asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. "Why do you keep coming here, being kind, when I have given you no encouragement?" Isaac was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider his words carefully. "Because you seem like someone who has not had much kindness lately," he said finally. "And because I think beneath that armor you wear, there is someone worth knowing." The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow, striking too close to truths she tried to keep buried. "You do not know anything about me," she said, her voice sharp with defense. "No, madam, I do not," Isaac agreed. "But I would like to, if you would ever let me." Rebecca turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. "I cannot," she said quietly. "I do not trust men, Mr. Owens. I have learned that lesson too well." She expected him to ask why, to push for her story, or to leave in frustration. Instead, Isaac simply said, "Fair enough, I will earn it, even if it takes years. Rebecca turned back to stare at him, stunned by the simple sincerity in his voice. That is absurd. You cannot mean that. I am a patient man, Miss Morgan, and some things are worth waiting for. He picked up the broken ladder. I will take this with me and bring you a new one next week. No payment required except maybe a cup of coffee when I deliver it. Before Rebecca could argue, he was gone, carrying the broken ladder out into the bright California sunshine. She stood in her store, surrounded by barrels of flour and bolts of fabric, and felt something dangerous bloom in her chest, hope. The new ladder arrived exactly 1 week later, carried in the back of a wagon by Isaac and another cowboy from the Chapman Ranch. It was beautiful work, solid oak with perfectly spaced rungs and rubber grips on the feet to prevent slipping. This is too fine, Rebecca protested as they brought it inside. This is furniture quality. It is safety quality, Isaac corrected, and it will last you 20 years or more. The other cowboy, a younger man named Tom, grinned at them. Isaac worked on this every evening for a week, would not even come play cards with us. Isaac shot him a look, and Tom quickly excused himself to wait with the wagon. Rebecca ran her hand along the smooth wood, feeling the care that had gone into every joint and surface. I do not know what to say, she admitted. Say you will have that coffee with me, Isaac suggested. Not dinner, not a social engagement, just coffee right here in your store, while you work if you like. Rebecca knew she should refuse. Every instinct screamed at her to maintain her distance, to protect herself. But she looked at the ladder, at the hours of work Isaac had put in for her safety, asking nothing in return, and found her defenses cracking further. 1 cup of coffee, she said, but I am brewing it, and we drink it here. Isaac's smile was like sunrise. Yes, madam. Rebecca went to the small stove in the back room, where she kept her personal supplies and made a pot of coffee. When she returned with 2 tin cups, Isaac was examining her store with clear appreciation. You have done well with this place, he said, accepting the cup. Good organization, fair prices from what I can tell, and you stock practical items without wasting space on frivolities. They sat on stools behind the counter, and for a while, they drank in comfortable silence. Then Isaac said, My mother's store failed after 5 years, not because she was not capable, but because men would not give her credit from suppliers, and the bank would not loan her money for expansion. She was too proud to remarry just for financial security, so eventually she had to sell and work as a seamstress instead. That is terrible, Rebecca said, anger flaring on behalf of a woman she had never met. She deserved better. She did, Isaac agreed, but she taught me something important, that strength is not always loud or violent. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who keep going day after day, doing what needs to be done despite the obstacles. Rebecca looked into her coffee cup. What happened to her? She died 2 years ago. Pneumonia? Isaac's voice was steady, but Rebecca heard the grief underneath. She never complained, not once, about how hard her life had been. She just lived it with dignity. I am sorry, Rebecca said softly. Thank you. Isaac took a sip of coffee. This is excellent, by the way. Much better than the swill we make at the bunkhouse. Rebecca found herself smiling slightly. The secret is adding a pinch of salt to cut the bitterness. I will remember that. Isaac studied her face. What about you, Miss Morgan? How did you come to own a store in Panamint? The question should have made her shut down, but something about the quiet afternoon, the good coffee, and Isaac's genuine interest made her want to answer. My parents had a farm in Colorado, she said slowly. When they died of scarlet fever, I sold it and came west with my fiancé. We were going to start a new life in California, maybe open a restaurant. She stopped, the old pain rising up. Isaac waited, not pushing, just present. He was killed 3 years ago, Rebecca continued, her voice flat. Shot in the street over a card game he was not even part of. Wrong place, wrong time. The man who shot him rode out of town before the sheriff could be summoned, and we never saw justice. I am sorry, Isaac said, and the simple words carried genuine compassion. That is a terrible thing to carry. I used the last of our money to buy this store, Rebecca said. I needed something to do, some reason to keep breathing. And I decided I would never depend on a man again, never trust one to stay, or to protect me, or to be anything other than a source of pain. Isaac nodded slowly. That makes sense. Trust has to be earned, not demanded. Rebecca looked at him directly. So why are you trying? Why not just find some other woman, someone without all this damage? Because I do not want some other woman, Isaac said simply. From the first moment I walked in here and you corrected me with that practical, no-nonsense manner, I thought you were the most interesting person I had met in years. And the more I have come to know you, even in these brief conversations, the more certain I am. You do not know me, Rebecca protested. Then let me, Isaac said. No promises, no expectations. Just let me show up, let me be consistent. Let me prove that not all men are liars or killers or fools. Rebecca's hands trembled around her coffee cup. What if I can never trust you? What if I am too broken? You are not broken, Isaac said firmly. You are wounded, and there is a difference. Wounds can heal, given time and care. He set down his cup and stood. I should get back to the ranch. Thank you for the coffee, Miss Morgan. Rebecca, she said suddenly. If we are going to have occasional coffee, you might as well call me Rebecca. Isaac's smile was gentle. Then you should call me Isaac. May I come by next week? Rebecca knew she was opening a door she might not be able to close again, but she nodded. Yes, you may. Over the following months, Isaac became a steady presence in Rebecca's life. He came to the store once or twice a week, always finding some small item he needed, always respectful and patient. Sometimes they shared coffee, sometimes just a few minutes of conversation. He told her about his work at the ranch, the horses he trained, the vast California sky at sunset. She told him about difficult customers, about her struggles to keep inventory stocked, about the loneliness of running a business alone. Isaac never pushed for more than she offered. He never tried to touch her beyond a steadying hand when she stumbled, or a polite assistance with a heavy crate. He simply showed up, reliable as the sunrise, proving through actions rather than words that he was worthy of trust. Summer arrived with scorching heat that turned Panamint into an oven. The mines kept producing silver, and the town kept growing, drawing more rough men seeking fortune. Rebecca's store did well, but she found herself looking forward to Isaac's visits with an anticipation that both pleased and frightened her. One blazing afternoon in July, Isaac arrived looking troubled. Rebecca, I need to head up to Sacramento for a week, he said. Boss is sending me to purchase breeding stock and negotiate some contracts. I wanted to let you know so you would not think I had just disappeared. Something warm unfurled in Rebecca's chest at his consideration. Thank you for telling me. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning, early. Isaac hesitated. Would you like to have dinner tonight? Actual dinner, at the restaurant, just as friends if that is all you are comfortable with. Rebecca had refused this invitation a dozen times over the past months, but now, looking at Isaac's honest face, at the man who had been nothing but patient and kind, she found herself wanting to say yes. All right, she said, surprised by her own bravery. What time? Isaac's face lit up. 7 o'clock. I will come collect you. That evening, Rebecca spent far too long choosing a dress, finally settling on a blue cotton that brought out her eyes. She told herself this did not mean anything, that it was just a meal with a friend. But her racing heart knew differently. Isaac arrived precisely at 7, wearing a clean shirt and vest, his hair neatly combed. He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Rebecca took it. Walking through town together felt simultaneously terrifying and right. The restaurant was small but clean, run by a Chinese family who had come with the railroad crews and stayed to serve the mining town. They were seated at a corner table, and Isaac ordered for both of them, after asking Rebecca's preferences. I have never seen you away from your store, Isaac observed. You seem different somehow. Different how? Rebecca asked. Softer, maybe, less guarded. His eyes were warm in the lamplight. I like it. Rebecca felt herself blushing and took a sip of water to cover it. This is strange for me, she admitted. I have not had dinner with a man since before Daniel died. Daniel was your fiancé? Yes, Daniel Fisher. He was kind and gentle, a dreamer who saw good in everyone. Rebecca's voice caught. That is what got him killed. He stepped into that street to help break up the fight, thinking he could talk sense into angry men. Isaac reached across the table and laid his hand near hers, not touching, but close enough to be an offer of comfort. His kindness was not a weakness, Rebecca. The world needs people who believe in goodness. The world killed him for it, Rebecca said bitterly. The world killed him by chance, Isaac corrected gently. Bad luck and bad men, nothing more. You could just as easily argue that his kindness gave him 3 years with you, built friendships, made people's lives better. The manner of someone's death does not erase the value of their life. Rebecca had never thought of it that way. She had been so focused on the violence of Daniel's end that she had stopped remembering the gentleness of their time together. Tears pricked her eyes, and she blinked them away furiously. "I am sorry," Isaac said quickly. "I did not mean to upset you." "No, it is." Rebecca took a shaky breath. "It is good, actually. I have not let myself remember him properly in so long. I was too angry, too hurt." Their food arrived, and they ate quietly for a while. Then Isaac said, "I want you to know something, Rebecca. I am not trying to replace Daniel or make you forget him. Your capacity to love him, to mourn him, those are good things. I am just hoping that maybe, someday, you might have room for someone else too." The honesty of it took Rebecca's breath away. "You are very patient," she whispered. "You are very worth it," Isaac replied. The week Isaac was gone felt longer than it should have. Rebecca caught herself watching the door, expecting him to walk through it, even though she knew he was in Sacramento. She felt foolish and frustrated with herself, but she could not deny that she missed him. When he finally returned, she was embarrassed by how her heart leaped at the sight of him. He came into the store with a package under his arm and a smile on his face. "I brought you something from Sacramento," he said, setting the package on the counter. "Isaac, you should not have," Rebecca protested, but she was already curious about the contents. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound ledger, far nicer than the cheap ones she typically used for her accounts. The leather was tooled with an elegant pattern, and her initials were embossed on the cover in gold leaf. "Isaac," she breathed, running her fingers over the smooth leather, "this is too much." "It is practical," he said. "You need ledgers for your business, and this one will last for years. I just made sure it was nice enough to reflect the quality of the businesswoman using it." Rebecca felt tears threatening again, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Without thinking, she stepped around the counter and hugged him. Isaac froze for a moment, then carefully put his arms around her, holding her like she was something precious that might break. "Thank you," Rebecca whispered against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, and it made her feel safe in a way she had almost forgotten. "You are welcome," Isaac said softly. When she pulled back, his eyes were bright. "I missed you while I was gone." "I missed you too," Rebecca admitted, and saying it aloud felt like jumping off a cliff. Something shifted between them after that. Rebecca found herself looking forward to Isaac's visits not just as breaks in her routine, but as the highlights of her days. They talked about everything: their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Isaac told her about his time breaking horses, the way you had to earn an animal's trust through patience and consistency. Rebecca told him about her struggles to be taken seriously as a businesswoman, the small victories when suppliers finally treated her as an equal. One evening in late August, they were sitting on the porch of Rebecca's small house behind the store, watching the sun paint the Panamint mountains in shades of orange and purple. Isaac had helped her repair a section of fence, and she had insisted he stay for supper. "Rebecca," Isaac said quietly, "I need to tell you something, and I want you to hear me out before you respond." Rebecca's stomach tightened with anxiety, but she nodded. "I am falling in love with you," Isaac said, his voice steady despite the weight of the words. "I do not say that to pressure you or to demand anything in return. I just think you deserve to know the truth. These past months, getting to know you, watching you face each day with courage and determination, it has been the best part of my life. You are smart and strong and funny and kind, even when you try to hide it behind practicality." Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. "Isaac!" "Let me finish," he said gently. "I know you are not ready to say it back. Maybe you never will be, and if that is the case, I will accept it. But I want you to know that I am here, that I am steady, and that I am not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Rebecca felt like she was standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying. Part of her wanted to run, to retreat behind her walls and protect herself. But another part, the part that had slowly been coming back to life over these months, wanted to lean into the risk. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know," Isaac said. "That makes sense. What if something happens to you? What if I let myself care, and then you are gone, like Daniel?" Isaac took her hand carefully, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. "I cannot promise nothing will ever happen, Rebecca. Life does not work that way. But I can promise I will be as careful as I can be. I will not take stupid risks. I will come home to you every day that I am able." "Every day?" Rebecca's voice shook. I have been thinking, Isaac said. My contract with the Chapman Ranch ends in October. I have been setting aside money, and I think I have enough to buy some land, start my own small horse breeding operation. There is a property about 2 miles from town, good water, decent grazing. I could make a life there. Why are you telling me this? Rebecca asked, though her heart was already racing with hope. Because I want to be close to you, Isaac said simply. Because I want to be someone you can count on seeing regularly, not just when ranch work brings me to town. Because I am building a future, and I would very much like you to be part of it, if you will have me. Rebecca looked at their joined hands, at the way Isaac's thumb was gently stroking across her knuckles. She thought about the past 4 months, about his consistency and patience, about the way he had never pushed or demanded, but had simply been present. She thought about how empty the week had felt when he was in Sacramento, and how her heart had sung when he returned. I do not know if I can say I love you yet, she said honestly, but I know that I care for you deeply. I know that I trust you more than I thought I could trust anyone, and I know that the thought of you not being in my life makes everything seem gray. Isaac's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. That is enough, Rebecca. That is more than enough. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Rebecca closed her eyes, feeling the tenderness of the gesture wash over her, and knew with absolute certainty that she was beginning to heal. The next 2 months passed in a blur of happiness that Rebecca had not known she could feel again. Isaac bought the property he had mentioned and began building a small house and stable with help from friends at the Chapman Ranch. Rebecca helped him plan, offering practical advice about layout and storage. On Sundays, her only day off, she would ride out to the property and they would work together, building something tangible and real. The physical attraction between them had been simmering for months, carefully banked but undeniable. Isaac's restraint was remarkable. He never pushed beyond gentle kisses, never assumed permission, always asked before touching. It made Rebecca feel cherished and respected in ways she had not expected. One Sunday afternoon in early October, they were sitting on the half-finished porch of Isaac's new house, sharing water and watching the horses he had purchased graze in the field. The work was progressing well, and the house would be finished within a month. Rebecca, Isaac said, setting down his water tin. I have been thinking about something for a while now, and I want to ask you a question, but I need you to know there is no pressure, and if the answer is no, nothing changes between us. Rebecca's heart started pounding. She thought she knew what was coming, and the fact that she was not immediately terrified told her how much she had changed. Isaac reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. When he opened it, Rebecca saw a simple gold band with a small garnet stone, deep red and beautiful. Rebecca Morgan, would you consider marrying me? Isaac asked. Not right away, not until you are ready, but someday, when you feel certain. I want to build this life with you. I want to wake up beside you every morning and face whatever comes together. I want to earn your trust every single day for the rest of our lives. Rebecca felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in years, they were happy tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Isaac, I will marry you. Isaac's whoop of joy startled the horses, and then he was pulling her into his arms, spinning her around on the porch while she laughed and cried simultaneously. When he set her down, he kissed her properly for the first time, and Rebecca felt like she was coming home. I love you, she said against his lips, the words finally free. I love you so much it terrifies me, but I love you. I love you too, Isaac replied, his voice thick with emotion. I will spend every day proving you made the right choice. They decided to marry in December, giving Isaac time to finish the house and Rebecca time to arrange her business affairs. She would keep the store, hiring a part-time assistant to help manage it, but she would live with Isaac on the ranch. The wedding was small, held at the church in Panamint on a crisp December morning in 1882. Rebecca wore a dress of cream silk, carefully chosen to create no reminders of that blood-stained gown from her past. Isaac wore a new suit that made him look both handsome and slightly uncomfortable, which Rebecca found endearing. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When the minister asked if Rebecca took Isaac to be her husband, she looked into his steady blue eyes and said, I do, with absolute certainty. Isaac's voice shook slightly when he said his vows, and Rebecca loved him even more for showing his emotion. Their first kiss as husband and wife was tender and full of promise. The small congregation cheered, and Rebecca felt surrounded by genuine happiness for the first time since Daniel's death. She was not forgetting her past or betraying Daniel's memory. She was simply allowing herself to live again, to love again, and it felt right. The celebration afterward was held at the restaurant where they had shared their first dinner. Friends from town and the Chapman Ranch filled the small space, and there was music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat. Rebecca danced with Isaac, letting him lead her through the steps, trusting him to catch her if she stumbled. "Happy?" Isaac murmured in her ear. "Happier than I ever thought I could be again," Rebecca admitted. That night, in the finished bedroom of their new house, Isaac was patient and gentle, making sure Rebecca felt safe and cherished. The intimacy between them was sweet and profound, a physical expression of the trust and love they had built over months of patience and honesty. Afterward, lying in Isaac's arms, listening to his heartbeat, Rebecca said quietly, "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Thank you for letting me in," Isaac replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You are the bravest person I know, Rebecca Owens." Rebecca smiled at her new name. "Say it again." "Rebecca Owens," Isaac repeated, pulling her closer. "My wife, my love, my partner in everything." Life settled into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exciting. Rebecca managed her store with the help of a young woman named Sarah, who proved quick and reliable. This freed Rebecca to spend more time at the ranch, where Isaac's horse breeding business began to flourish. He had a gift for working with difficult animals, approaching them with the same patience he had shown Rebecca, and word spread quickly about the quality of his horses. Rebecca discovered she enjoyed ranch work more than she had expected. She kept the books for Isaac's business, managed the household finances, and even learned to help with the horses. There was something deeply satisfying about building a life together, about being partners in every sense of the word. Their first Christmas together was simple but perfect. They had no family nearby, but they created traditions of their own, a tree cut from the mountains, decorations made by hand, a quiet dinner in their warm home. On Christmas morning, Isaac gave Rebecca a beautiful saddle, custom-made for her smaller frame. "So you can ride with me," he explained. "I want to show you all the beautiful places in these mountains." Rebecca gave him a new pocket watch engraved with their wedding date, and when Isaac opened it, his eyes grew suspiciously bright. They spent the afternoon riding through the winter landscape, the mountains stunning in their snow-covered majesty, and Rebecca felt peace settle into her bones. In March of 1883, Rebecca began feeling unwell in the mornings. At first she thought it was something she had eaten, but when the nausea persisted for 2 weeks, she consulted the town doctor. He confirmed what she had begun to suspect: she was expecting a baby. Rebecca's emotions were complicated. She was thrilled at the prospect of a child with Isaac, but also terrified. Childbirth was dangerous, and she would be trusting her life to forces beyond her control. That evening, she told Isaac the news while they were doing evening chores. Isaac dropped the bucket he was carrying and swept her into his arms, careful not to squeeze too hard. "A baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Rebecca, we are going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Rebecca asked, needing to hear it. "I am beyond happy," Isaac said. "I am grateful and excited and absolutely terrified, but mostly just deeply, profoundly happy." He pulled back to look at her face. "How are you feeling about it?" "The same," Rebecca admitted. "Scared, but happy." "Isaac, what if something goes wrong?" "Then we will face it together," Isaac said firmly. "But we are not going to borrow trouble. You are strong and healthy, and we will make sure you have the best care available. Dr. Morrison is a good physician, and there is a midwife in town who comes highly recommended." Over the following months, Isaac was attentive without being smothering. He took over the heavier chores without comment, and made sure Rebecca rested when she needed to. He read every book about pregnancy and childbirth he could find, wanting to understand what Rebecca was experiencing. In the evenings, they would sit on their porch watching the sunset, and Isaac would talk to Rebecca's growing belly, telling their unborn child about the ranch and the horses, and how much they were already loved. Rebecca would laugh at his earnestness, but she also felt her heart swell with love for this man who had so patiently earned her trust. The baby came in November, after a long and difficult labor that had Isaac pacing the hallway in terror. But Rebecca was strong, and with the midwife's skilled help, she delivered a healthy baby boy in the early hours of a cold morning. When the midwife placed the baby in Rebecca's arms, she felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. The baby had Isaac's blue eyes and a shock of dark hair, and he was absolutely perfect. "What should we name him?" Isaac asked, sitting beside the bed and running a gentle finger across his son's tiny hand. "I was thinking Thomas," Rebecca said. "After your father, Thomas Owens." Isaac's eyes filled with tears. "He would have been so proud," he whispered. "So very proud of you and this beautiful boy." Baby Thomas was a relatively easy infant, which Rebecca considered a blessing given her continued responsibilities with the store and ranch. Isaac was a devoted father, rising in the night to bring Thomas to Rebecca for feeding, changing diapers without complaint, and spending hours holding his son while singing old cowboy songs in his rough but earnest voice. Watching Isaac with their son made Rebecca fall in love with him all over again. He was patient and gentle, treating Thomas with the same care and respect he showed the horses he trained. And he'd never let Rebecca feel alone in the responsibilities of parenthood. They were partners in this, as in everything else. When Thomas was 6 months old, a letter arrived that would change their lives. It was from a lawyer in Missouri informing Isaac that a distant uncle had died and left him a substantial sum of money. Isaac had barely known the man, but apparently the uncle had admired Isaac's father and wanted to provide for his nephew. "This is enough to expand the ranch significantly," Isaac said, studying the papers in amazement. "We could buy the adjacent property, build a bigger stable, bring in more breeding stock. Or we could save it," Rebecca suggested practically. "Have security for the future, for Thomas and any other children we might have." Isaac looked at her with a smile. "How about we do both? Use half for expansion and save half for the future." It was a good compromise, and over the next year, the ranch grew into a thriving operation. Isaac hired 2 ranch hands to help with the increased workload, and Rebecca hired an additional person for the store. They were prospering in ways they had never imagined, but the money did not change them. They still worked hard, still valued honesty and fairness, still treated everyone with respect. In the spring of 1885, Rebecca discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news came with less fear and more pure joy. Thomas was 2 years old, bright and energetic, and the thought of giving him a sibling felt right. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and in December, Rebecca delivered a healthy baby girl. They named her Grace Margaret, Grace for the second chance at life, and love they had both been given, and Margaret after Isaac's mother. Grace was different from Thomas, more serious and observant even as an infant. Where Thomas had been quick to smile, Grace studied everything with intense focus. Isaac adored her, calling her his little philosopher, and spending hours showing her the world around the ranch. Life fell into a beautiful pattern. The store continued to thrive under capable management, giving Rebecca the freedom to focus on the ranch and her children. Isaac's reputation as a horse trainer grew, and people came from as far as Sacramento to purchase his animals. They saved money carefully, building security for their family's future. Thomas grew into a curious and adventurous child who loved the horses and wanted to help his father with everything. Grace was quieter, but equally determined, watching carefully before attempting new things, and then mastering them with focused intensity. Rebecca saw parts of herself and Isaac in both children, and it filled her with profound gratitude. In the summer of 1887, when Thomas was 4 and Grace was 2, the family took a trip to San Francisco. It was the first real vacation they had allowed themselves, leaving the ranch and store in the hands of their trusted employees. They stayed in a modest hotel and explored the city, showing the children the ocean and the bustling streets so different from Panamint. One evening, after the children were asleep, Rebecca and Isaac walked along the waterfront, watching the ships in the harbor. The fog was rolling in, cool and mysterious, and Rebecca leaned against her husband's solid warmth. "Do you remember when we first met?" she asked. "When I was so determined not to let you into my life?" "I remember," Isaac said, wrapping his arm around her. "I remember thinking you were the most fascinating woman I had ever met, and being terrified that I would never get past your walls." "I am glad you were patient," Rebecca said softly. "I am glad you did not give up, even when I gave you every reason to." "You gave me reasons to stay too," Isaac pointed out. "Every small bit of trust you offered, every conversation we shared, it showed me the remarkable woman beneath the armor. I would have waited 20 years if that was what it took." Rebecca turned to face him, placing her hands on his chest. "I love you, Isaac Owens. I love the life we have built, the family we have created. I never thought I could be this happy again, and you made it possible." Isaac kissed her tenderly. "We made it possible together. You did the hard work of healing and trusting again. I just held steady and waited for you to be ready." "You did more than that," Rebecca insisted. "You showed me through actions that not all men are unreliable or dangerous. You earned my trust inch by inch, day by day, and you have never wavered. That is not a small thing, Isaac. That is everything." They stood together in the fog, the sound of foghorns echoing across the water, and Rebecca felt complete in a way she had never imagined possible after Daniel's death. She had not forgotten her first love or the pain of losing him, but she had learned that the heart could heal, could grow, could love again, without diminishing what came before. The years continued to pass in contentment. In 1889, Rebecca discovered she was pregnant a third time, and in early 1890, she delivered another son they named William. Where Thomas was adventurous and Grace was serious, William was pure joy, a sunny-tempered baby who laughed at everything and charmed everyone he met. Isaac was 40 by then, still strong and capable, but with threads of gray in his dark hair. Rebecca was 35, confident and successful in ways her younger self could never have imagined. Together they had built something lasting: a ranch that employed 6 people, a store that served the entire Panamint community, and a family bound by love and mutual respect. On their 10th wedding anniversary in December of 1892, Isaac took Rebecca back to the restaurant where they had shared their first dinner. The children were home with a trusted neighbor, giving them a rare evening alone. 10 years, Rebecca marveled, looking across the table at her husband. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, and sometimes I cannot imagine life without you." "I cannot imagine life without you either," Isaac said. He reached across and took her hand, his thumb tracing the wedding band she had worn for a decade. "You are my best friend, Rebecca, my partner, my love, the mother of my children. You are everything." "You saved me," Rebecca said quietly. "When I was drowning in grief and anger, you threw me a rope and held on until I was ready to be pulled to shore." "We saved each other," Isaac corrected. "You gave me purpose, Rebecca. You made me want to be the best man I could be, to prove myself worthy of your trust. That is a gift I can never repay." Rebecca felt tears threatening and laughed at herself. 10 years, and you can still make me cry." "Happy tears, I hope." "Always happy tears now," Rebecca assured him. They talked late into the night, reminiscing about their courtship, laughing over the early awkwardness of marriage, marveling at how their children were growing. When they finally returned home, they found all 3 children asleep in Thomas's room, piled together like puppies. The sight made Rebecca's heart overflow. "We did good," Isaac whispered, standing in the doorway with his arm around Rebecca's waist. "We did," Rebecca agreed. "We did very good." In 1895, Thomas turned 12 and began taking on more significant responsibilities around the ranch. He had his father's gift with horses and his mother's head for business, a combination that promised well for his future. Grace, at 10, was already helping Rebecca with bookkeeping for both the store and ranch, her careful attention to detail making her invaluable. 5-year-old William was still young, but he showed signs of inheriting his father's patience and his mother's determination. Rebecca sometimes thought about Daniel, especially on the anniversary of his death each year, but the pain had long since faded to a gentle melancholy, a recognition of what had been lost, but also gratitude for what had been found. Daniel had been her first love, and she had mourned him appropriately. Isaac was her second chance, her forever love, and she treasured him more with each passing year. One afternoon in the spring of 1896, Rebecca was working in the garden behind their house when Isaac came riding up at a gallop, unusual for his normally measured pace. She stood, worried something was wrong, but when he dismounted, he was smiling broadly. "Rebecca, you will not believe this," he said, pulling an official-looking letter from his pocket. "The Army is interested in purchasing horses from us, a significant contract, enough to expand operations even further and provide steady income for years." Rebecca took the letter, reading it carefully. It was indeed an offer for a substantial number of horses, with payment terms that were more than fair. "Isaac, this is wonderful," she said, excitement building. "This could secure our children's futures, maybe allow us to send them to university if they want to go." Exactly what I was thinking, Isaac said, pulling her into his arms and spinning her around like he had on their wedding day. We have done it, Rebecca. We have built something that will last. That evening, they gathered the children and told them about the Army contract. Thomas immediately wanted to know if this meant they would breed more horses. Grace wanted to see the financial projections and calculate potential profits. William just wanted to know if they could get a puppy to celebrate. Their individual reactions made both parents laugh, each child so perfectly themselves. We are very proud of all of you, Rebecca told them, and we want you to know that everything we have built is for your futures. You will have opportunities we never had, and we hope you will make the most of them. Will we have to leave the ranch? Thomas asked, a note of worry in his young voice. Only if you choose to, Isaac assured him. This ranch is our legacy to you, but we want you to find your own paths too. If you want to work here, wonderful. If you want to see the world, that is wonderful too. The Army contract proved to be the beginning of even greater success. Word spread about the quality of Isaac's horses, and soon they had more orders than they could fill. They hired additional staff and expanded the facilities again, but always maintained the personal touch and attention to quality that had built their reputation. In 1898, Rebecca made the decision to sell her store. She was 50 years old, and while she remained active in the ranch business, the daily management of the store had become more burden than pleasure. She sold it to Sarah, who had been her assistant manager for over a decade, giving her favorable terms and offering to mentor her through the transition. Are you sad to let it go? Isaac asked the day the papers were signed. Rebecca considered the question carefully. A little, she admitted. That store saved me when I needed saving. It gave me purpose and independence when I felt like I had nothing. But it is time. Sarah will take good care of it, and I am ready to focus on our family and the ranch. You have built something to be proud of, Isaac said. 2 somethings, actually, the store and our family. 3 somethings, Rebecca corrected with a smile. The ranch is mine too, built with you, but still mine. Isaac pulled her close and kissed the top of her head. Everything I have is yours, Rebecca. Always has been. The turn of the century arrived with celebration and reflection. On the first day of 1900, the entire family gathered on their porch to watch the sunrise over the Panamint Mountains. Thomas was 17 now, tall and strong like his father. Grace was 15, poised and intelligent. William was 10, still the family's ray of sunshine. What do you think the new century will bring? Grace asked thoughtfully. Change, Rebecca said. Progress, challenges and opportunities we cannot imagine yet. Whatever it brings, we will face it together, Isaac added, his arm around Rebecca's waist. That is what families do. In 1902, Thomas announced he wanted to attend university in Sacramento to study veterinary medicine. It was both exciting and bittersweet for Rebecca, watching her firstborn prepare to leave home. But she was also immensely proud of his ambition and determination. The day they took Thomas to Sacramento was difficult. Rebecca cried despite her best efforts, and even Isaac's eyes were suspiciously bright as they said goodbye to their son. But Thomas was confident and eager, ready for this new adventure. We raised him right, Isaac said on the long ride home. He is going to do great things. I know, Rebecca said, wiping her eyes. But I am allowed to be sad even while I am proud. Of course you are, Isaac agreed, reaching over to squeeze her hand. We still have 2 at home, though. They need us just as much. Grace proved to be just as ambitious as her brother, expressing interest in studying business and potentially opening her own enterprise someday. William, still young, seemed inclined toward ranch work, showing his father's natural affinity for animals. Rebecca and Isaac supported all their children's dreams, grateful they had the resources to make those dreams possible. In the fall of 1904, when Rebecca was 56 and Isaac was 54, they received devastating news. There had been an accident at the university. Thomas had been kicked by a horse he was treating, and the injury had been severe. By the time they made it to Sacramento, their son had developed a fever from infection, and despite the best medical care available, he died 2 days later. The grief was crushing. Rebecca felt like she was back in that dark place after Daniel's death, drowning in loss and pain. But this time, she was not alone. Isaac grieved alongside her, and together they held each other through the worst of it. Grace and William, both devastated by their brother's death, needed their parents' strength, even as they provided comfort in return. Thomas was buried in Panamint, in a small cemetery with a view of the mountains he had loved. The entire town turned out for the funeral, testament to the respect the Owens family had earned over the years. Rebecca stood at the graveside, supported by Isaac on one side and Grace on the other, and felt like her heart was being ripped from her chest. The weeks after Thomas's death were the darkest Rebecca had experienced since marrying Isaac. She struggled to find purpose, to understand why her beautiful, kind, intelligent son had been taken. Isaac, dealing with his own grief, nevertheless remained steady, giving Rebecca space to mourn while also gently pulling her back when she spiraled too far into darkness. One night, several weeks after the funeral, Rebecca sat on their porch wrapped in a blanket despite the mild California evening. Isaac came out and sat beside her, saying nothing for a long time. "I do not know how to keep going," Rebecca finally whispered. "You do," Isaac said quietly. "You have done it before. You know how to survive impossible loss." "That was different. I was alone then." "Exactly," Isaac said. "Now you have me. You have Grace and William. You have this ranch and this community. You have reasons to keep living, Rebecca, even when it feels impossible." Rebecca turned to look at her husband, seeing the grief carved into his face, the new lines around his eyes. "You are hurting too." "I am," Isaac admitted. "Thomas was my son, and I loved him more than I can express. But we are going to survive this, Rebecca. Together. We are going to honor his memory by living fully, by loving fiercely, by being there for our other children and each other." Rebecca leaned against Isaac's solid strength and let herself cry, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Isaac held her through it, his own tears falling silently, and slowly, very slowly, the worst of the pain began to ease into something bearable. The healing was not quick or linear. There were good days and terrible days, moments when Rebecca forgot Thomas was gone and reached for him before reality crashed back. But Isaac was there through all of it, patient and understanding, helping her navigate grief while managing his own. Grace and William needed their parents, and that need gave Rebecca purpose. She focused on being present for them, on making sure they felt supported and loved through their own grief. The family grew closer through their shared loss, learning to talk about Thomas openly, to share memories and tears without fear. A year after Thomas's death, on what would have been his 20th birthday, the family gathered at his grave. They each shared a favorite memory, laughed through their tears, and planted a tree that would grow and provide shade for future visitors to the cemetery. "He would have liked this," William said quietly. He was 12 now, having grown several inches in the past year. Thomas always wanted to leave something behind that mattered. "He did," Rebecca said, putting her arm around her youngest son. "He left us with love and memories. He left his mark on everyone who knew him. That matters more than anything." Life gradually found a new rhythm, one that acknowledged the loss while still embracing the beauty that remained. The ranch continued to prosper, the Army contract providing steady income. Grace decided to attend a women's college in San Francisco, studying business as she had always planned. William grew into a capable ranch hand, working alongside his father and learning the skills that would someday allow him to manage the operation himself. In 1908, Grace returned from college with a young man named David Peterson, a fellow student who had captured her heart. Rebecca watched them together and saw echoes of her own relationship with Isaac, the respect, the partnership, the obvious affection. "He is a good man," Isaac observed after meeting David for the first time. "He is," Rebecca agreed. "Do you think she will marry him?" "I think she might," Isaac said. "And if she does, I think they will be happy." Grace and David were married in the spring of 1909, a beautiful ceremony held at the ranch with friends and family gathered to celebrate. It was a bittersweet day, joyful for Grace's happiness, but tinged with sadness that Thomas was not there to see his sister wed. But there was a place set for him at the reception, an acknowledgement of his continued presence in their hearts. By 1910, Rebecca was 62 and Isaac was 60. They had been married 27 years, and the love between them had only deepened with time. William, at 20, was fully capable of managing the ranch with minimal oversight from Isaac, which gave his parents the freedom to travel and enjoy life. They took a trip to San Francisco to visit Grace and David, who had settled there and were expecting their first child. Rebecca was thrilled at the prospect of becoming a grandmother, though it came with complicated feelings about Thomas never having the chance to have a family of his own. Grace's son was born in August, a healthy baby boy they named Thomas Isaac. When Grace placed the infant in Rebecca's arms and told her the name they had chosen, Rebecca cried. "We wanted to honor both of them," Grace said, looking at her parents. "The brother I lost and the father who taught me what a good man looks like." Isaac had to step out of the room for a moment to compose himself, and when he returned, his eyes were red, but his smile was genuine. Holding his grandson, seeing Thomas's name carried forward, brought healing Rebecca had not known they still needed. Life continued its forward motion. William, showing no signs of settling down, despite his mother's gentle hints, seemed content working the ranch and building the business even further. Grace and David had 2 more children, a daughter named Rose and another son named Daniel, giving Rebecca and Isaac 4 grandchildren to dote on. In 1915, Rebecca turned 67 and Isaac turned 65. They were slowing down physically, though both remained sharp mentally. They spent more time on their porch, watching sunsets and talking about everything and nothing. The ranch was successful beyond anything they had imagined when they first started, and their family, though marked by loss, was thriving. One evening in late summer, as they sat watching the stars appear over the mountains, Rebecca said, "Do you remember when you first asked me to dinner and I said no?" Isaac laughed. "I remember every rejection you gave me. I was terrified you would never change your mind." "I am so glad I did," Rebecca said softly. "I am so glad you were patient enough to wait for me to heal. You gave me back my life, Isaac. You gave me love and family and purpose when I thought all of that was gone forever." "You gave me those things too," Isaac said, taking her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, the way they had 1,000 times before. "Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. You made me want to be better, to build something meaningful. Everything good in my life came from loving you." Rebecca leaned her head on Isaac's shoulder, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. "Do you think Thomas is proud of us?" she asked quietly. "Wherever he is, do you think he sees what we built?" "I think he is proud," Isaac said with certainty. "And I think he is grateful that we did not let grief destroy us, that we kept living and loving and being there for Grace and William." They sat in comfortable silence as full darkness fell. Around them, the ranch they had built together settled into nighttime routines. Horses nickered softly in their stalls. A dog barked once in the distance. The wind whispered through the trees they had planted years ago, now tall and strong. "I love you, Rebecca Owens," Isaac said into the darkness. "I have loved you for over 30 years, and I will love you until my last breath." "I love you too," Rebecca replied. "Thank you for not giving up on me all those years ago. Thank you for being exactly who you promised you would be." "Always," Isaac said simply. In 1918, the world was gripped by war and influenza, but Panamint remained relatively untouched by both. The ranch continued to supply horses to the army, now for the war effort, and the family remained healthy. William, at 28, finally announced he was courting a young woman from town, a schoolteacher named Elizabeth, who shared his love of horses and wide-open spaces. Rebecca liked Elizabeth immediately, seeing in her the same practical intelligence and warm heart that she valued. When William asked for his parents' blessing to marry, both gave it enthusiastically. The wedding in early 1919 was simpler than Grace's had been, fitting the more somber mood of a country recovering from war. But it was beautiful nonetheless, and watching William pledge his life to Elizabeth, Rebecca felt profound gratitude that she had lived to see this day. "Two married, both settled and happy," she said to Isaac as they danced at the reception. Her joints ached with arthritis now, and Isaac moved more slowly than he once had, but they still moved together with practiced grace. "We did well," Isaac agreed. "Our children know how to love and be loved. That is the greatest gift we could have given them." By 1920, Rebecca was 72 and Isaac was 70. They had officially retired from active management of the ranch, though both still offered advice when asked. William and Elizabeth lived in the main house now, with Rebecca and Isaac moving to a smaller but comfortable cottage on the property. It was a good arrangement, allowing them to remain close to the ranch they had built, while giving the younger generation space to make it their own. Grace visited often with her children, now teenagers and young adults themselves. Little Thomas, named for his uncle, was studying medicine, determined to help others the way his namesake had wanted to. Rose was artistic and dreaming of San Francisco's art scene. Daniel was still young, just 12, but showed signs of his grandfather's patience and kindness. On a clear day in December 1920, Rebecca and Isaac celebrated their 38th wedding anniversary. It was a quiet celebration, just the two of them in their cottage, but it was perfect. They exchanged simple gifts. Rebecca gave Isaac a new pipe, and Isaac gave Rebecca a shawl he had secretly commissioned from a weaver in town, made from the softest wool and dyed her favorite shade of blue. 38 years, Rebecca marveled. Do you remember how scared I was to marry you? How certain I was that I would never trust a man again? I remember, Isaac said, wrapping the shawl around her shoulders. And I remember thinking that if I could just make you smile, just once, maybe I would have a chance. You made me do more than smile, Rebecca said, touching his weathered face with gentle fingers. You made me believe in love again. You made me whole. Isaac captured her hand and kissed her palm. We made each other whole. That is what the best partnerships do. They spent the evening reminiscing, talking about their years together, laughing over old memories and crying over the losses they had endured. When they finally went to bed, Rebecca curled against Isaac's side as she had for nearly 4 decades, listening to his heartbeat and feeling blessed beyond measure. In the spring of 1922, Isaac's health began to decline. He was 72, and the hard years of ranch work were catching up with him. He tired easily and sometimes struggled to catch his breath. The doctor diagnosed a weak heart and advised rest, which Isaac resisted but eventually accepted. Rebecca cared for him with the same devotion he had shown her through the years. She made sure he took his medicine, prepared foods the doctor recommended, and sat with him during the long afternoons. William and Elizabeth helped, as did Grace when she could make the trip from San Francisco, but Rebecca insisted on being Isaac's primary caretaker. You took care of me when I was broken, she told him one evening, as she helped him into bed. Now it is my turn. I am not broken, Isaac protested, though his breathlessness undermined the statement. No, you are weathered, Rebecca said gently, like a beautiful piece of leather that has been used well and often. But even beautiful things need tending. Isaac smiled and took her hand. I am ready, you know, he said quietly. When the time comes, I have lived a full life, Rebecca. I have loved deeply and been loved in return. I have children and grandchildren who will carry on after me. I have no regrets. Do not talk like that, Rebecca said, fear clutching at her heart. You have years left. Maybe, Isaac said. But if I do not, I want you to know something. You made my life worth living. Every single day with you has been a gift. If I died tomorrow, I would die the happiest man who ever lived. Rebecca felt tears streaming down her face. I am not ready to lose you. I know, my love, Isaac said, pulling her down to lie beside him. But you will be all right. You are the strongest person I have ever known. And you will not be alone. You have our children and grandchildren. You have this ranch and this community. You will grieve me, as you should, but then you will keep living. Promise me, you will keep living. I promise, Rebecca whispered, though the thought of life without Isaac felt impossible. Isaac lived through the summer and into the fall, each day a gift they treasured. In late October, on a crisp morning, with the first hint of winter in the air, Isaac called his family together. William and Elizabeth came from the main house. Grace arrived with her husband and children, having been summoned by telegram. They gathered in the small cottage, crowding into the bedroom, where Isaac lay propped up on pillows. I want to tell you all something, Isaac said, his voice weak but clear. I am proud of each of you. William, you have taken this ranch and made it even better than I imagined. Grace, you have built a beautiful life and raised remarkable children. Elizabeth, David, you have been wonderful additions to our family. He paused to catch his breath, and Rebecca held his hand tightly. But mostly, I want you to learn from what your mother and I built together. We learned that trust is earned through actions, not words. That patience and consistency can heal even the deepest wounds. That love is not just a feeling, but a choice you make every single day. Remember that, and you will have lives as rich as ours has been. There was not a dry eye in the room. Each family member took turns saying their goodbyes, sharing memories and gratitude. When they had all left, giving Rebecca and Isaac a final private moment, Rebecca lay down beside her husband one last time. I love you, she whispered. I will love you until my own last breath and beyond. I love you too, Isaac replied, his voice barely audible. Thank you for trusting me, Rebecca. Thank you for letting me love you. Isaac died peacefully in his sleep that night, with Rebecca beside him, as she had been for 39 years. The grief was immense, but it was different from losing Thomas. Isaac had lived a full life, had died surrounded by love, and had left behind a legacy of family and prosperity. Rebecca mourned him deeply, but she also celebrated the extraordinary gift of having loved him and been loved by him. The funeral was attended by seemingly everyone in Panamint and beyond. Isaac had touched many lives through his honesty, his skill, and his kindness. He was buried next to Thomas in the small cemetery, with a headstone that read, "Isaac Owens, beloved husband, father, and friend. He earned trust through love." In the months after Isaac's death, Rebecca leaned heavily on her family. Grace stayed for several weeks, helping her mother navigate grief and adjust to life alone. William checked on her daily, making sure she ate and slept and did not sink too far into sorrow. The grandchildren visited often, their youthful energy a reminder of life's continuity. Rebecca kept her promise to Isaac. She grieved him, missing him every single day, but she kept living. She found purpose in her grandchildren, in watching the ranch continue to thrive, in being part of her community. She had learned from Isaac that life was precious and should not be wasted, even in mourning. On what would have been their 40th wedding anniversary in December 1922, Rebecca visited Isaac's grave with a bouquet of wildflowers. She sat on the ground beside the headstone, not caring that the cold earth seeped through her skirts. 40 years, she said aloud, as if Isaac could hear her. You promised you would earn my trust, even if it took years, and you did. You earned it and kept it every single day. You were the best man I have ever known, Isaac Owens, and I am grateful for every moment we had together. The wind whispered through the cemetery, and Rebecca felt a sense of peace settle over her. She was 74 years old, and while she did not know how much time she had left, she knew it would be time well spent. She would continue to love her family, support her community, and honor the memory of both men who had loved her, Daniel, who had shown her the innocence of first love, and Isaac, who had shown her the depth and strength of forever love. Rebecca lived another 8 years, dying peacefully in her sleep in the spring of 1930 at the age of 82. She was buried between Isaac and Thomas, her headstone reading, Rebecca Morgan Owens, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, she learned to trust again. William and Grace stood at their mother's graveside, surrounded by their own families, and felt the weight of what their parents had built, not just the ranch or the businesses, but a legacy of love and resilience, of patience and trust earned through consistent action. They had something special, Grace said quietly. They did, William agreed, and they taught us how to have it too. That is the greatest gift parents can give their children. The ranch continued to prosper for generations, passed down through the Owens family, along with the story of Rebecca and Isaac, of how a wounded woman who swore she would never trust a man again met a patient cowboy who said, "Fair enough, I will earn it even if it takes years," and how he did exactly that, proving through years of consistency and devotion that love could heal the deepest wounds and that trust, once truly earned, could build something that lasted far beyond a single lifetime. Their story became legend in Panamint, told around firesides and dinner tables as an example of what love could be when two people committed fully to building it together. It inspired other broken hearts to risk healing, other wounded souls to give trust another chance. And somewhere in the California mountains, in a small cemetery overlooking land, they had built into something beautiful. Rebecca and Isaac rested side by side, their love story complete and their legacy secure in the family and community they had created together.